Welcome to Restore 2022. Today we're reading the final chapter of the prophecy of Amos, Amos chapter 9. To recap, God has called Amos away from the sheepfolds of Tekoa and sent him to Bethel, just over 20 miles away. But Bethel is in Israel, a few miles across the national border with Judah. What's more, when the schism originally occurred between Judah and Israel, Bethel became for the northern kingdom the national centre of worship with a golden calf. Jeroboam I set it up as a rival to Jerusalem, and you can read about this if you want to in 1 Kings chapter 12. But now, God has sent Amos right into the heart of Israel's royal and religious hierarchy. He's primed to launch a violent attack on Bethel's idolatry and the widespread injustices that flow from its practice. Consequently, he's to announce the day of the Lord, which will not be the day of salvation taught by the cultus, but a dark day of fierce judgment. And so we come to chapter 9. The judgment entails the inescapable destruction of Israel. Now, looking at commentaries for this chapter, I've learnt a new word. Well, maybe perhaps you already know it. It's merism. A merism is the literary use of two contrasting words or phrases to express the totality or completeness of something. For example, head to toe, or lock, stock and barrel, which are both merisms. Well, chapter 9 is full of them. In verse 1, the capitals and threshold of the temple will be shaken. The whole thing, in other words. And there are other examples. Sheol, the underworld, versus heaven, and Carmel, the mountain top, versus the bottom of the sea. In short, there's no place between these extremes to escape God. Amos reminds his hearers that God has sovereignly moved peoples before, the Philistines from Crete, for instance, and he can certainly remove Israel from its place, shaking its people among the nations. However, Amos can breathe a sigh of relief. Israel will be restored when, in his words, the booth of David is repaired and rebuilt. Now, we know with hindsight that not only the kingdom of Israel but also Judah went into exile. And we also know that a Davidic king never ruled Israel again after they returned from captivity. But the fallen booth of David was restored with the birth of Jesus Christ, to whom the messianic promises belonged. And Amos suggested that when David's booth is restored, other nations who are called by the Lord's name will also be gathered and included. Which is why James quotes Amos in Acts chapter 15 to justify the inclusion of Gentiles in the church community. Now, I reckon Amos was a brave man, but I guess he was relieved to get back to his sheep, don't you?